Daniel.
Okay, this is Alan Seiler. He's the owner of Better Together Farms. He's my neighbor. We live about a half a mile apart, and he's a market gardener. And they just recently bought 20 acres.
Yep.
Everything we've been doing here was on a half acre, including the house and everything.
We have 2 acres here. Our production area is like a fifth of an acre.
A fifth of an acre. Okay, so you're bumping up big time. Alan, I got to know Alan like probably a couple of years ago. I just happened to see his greenhouses. In the wintertime, you can just barely see him through the trees. And I noticed he had several greenhouses up here, and I just kind of came in and introduced myself one day while I was working.
Kind of scared us the first day came.
So, do you sell to the public generally? I mean, a lot of times they say that with market gardening, location, you have to have people that care about it, but you're pretty remote here.
Well, I mean, I guess it's all relative what remote actually is. I mean, for a lot of market gardeners, I mean, like for Jean-Martin Fortier up in Quebec, I mean, he's like an hour and a half from Quebec, so he's actually, I would think, more remote than probably we are to a population base. So I mean, I don't think we're too far out for a market garden, but we don't have a very strong local food movement here. So because of that, we don't really have farmers market options. So we have gone to web-based marketing. So we basically have our CSA online, and instead of a CSA like you would think of where it's pre-made boxes and stuff like that, we actually allow customers to choose what they want, and then we make up the box according to what they want, and then we deliver it. And so because of that, we will sell to around anywhere between 30 to 40 customers a week on this small. I mean, this is still a very much of a, how do I say, a prototype stage. We know that we can't make a living just on this small amount considering our location, but with the web-based marketing, it gives us the ability to reach our customer base without having to sit at farmers markets that don't really exist in this area. They're not very good.
No.
So
I tried the farmers market deal for one summer, and it's just so small. You may have 3 or 4 people that are actually selling, and it's hit or miss. And a lot of times you would take all of your produce and bring home the majority of it. And with his system, he basically knows how much he needs to pick because it's already pre-sold before it ever comes out of the field.
Right.
So do they make like a yearly order? I know when we've had CSAs, it was that you think this is how much you'll use in a year, so they pre-order it, prepay for it, and then you already know what to plant. Or is it a weekly order?
It's so we started out with something like that where people would pay for like half a season or for a full season, which would be, half a season would be like 13 weeks, full season would be 26 weeks. And we found that actually we got halfway through the season and our product kind of petered out on us, and so we'd only let people to sign up for half a season, and then our product kind of petered out on us, and then we're like, well, we don't want to sign up people for the next season when we know we really can't perform, so we decided to just kind of do it for people can buy whatever they want online, and we would pack it up, and we kind of ran that way for the next part of the season without really any type of pre-paying, like, okay, you have to pay $400 before this season starts. And we found that people bought just as much without a CSA model, and at least in our area, with the CSA model. So we're like, well, do we really need this? I know the CSA is really an advantage for some people because they need that upfront capital at the beginning of the season. We haven't seemed to need that, and so it really wasn't a necessity, and people bought the same or more without that model restriction.
So do you do any kind of search optimization? My concern, at least I know in my area, people really wouldn't understand how to use the internet well enough to find somebody local. It has to be some kind of, and when we've tried to find little farms and CSAs just to come and visit them, a lot of times their search optimization is so low that unless somebody knows to tell you what website to go look up, you will never find them.
Right. I mean, we haven't done any type of marketing whatsoever. It's all been word of mouth in our local area. We've just grown it small. I mean, if if we were coming in and let's say we wanted to put an acre and a half like small vegetable production in and just start growing that much volume up front, then I think we would have to think about how do we push this product and how do we really move it. Since we've kind of gradually grown this over like a 4-year period, the word of mouth has kept up with our demand pretty much, and so we really haven't had to do it. It's all been a word of mouth situation.
Alan's family grows such a superior product for our area that the word of mouth, I mean, when I found Alan, I couldn't tell how many people I've brought here and said, you've got to see this, you know, you've got to see it, and show them their product. But what he grows and what he produces is so far above what we can buy anywhere else locally that the word of mouth thing doesn't take much to spread because he's doing such a good job with it.
I mean, our problem more is not having the volume to sell than, because we're limited in our acreage, than really having too much and not knowing what to do with it.
And is your goal to end up full-time like Joel Salatin?
Absolutely.
And
I'm trying to do the intensity of Curtis Stone, but I don't think we can completely copy what he's doing on like a third of an acre, just because he has that high-end product, high-end residential area that he's selling to. I don't think we can compete with that. So I think we'll have to grow more and have more volume to actually be able to make it a viable option for us here.
And so you're very young. It looks like you've done a lot of really, you've done a lot of infrastructure. It's not like you're out here with hoop houses only. You have your big greenhouses. You've put some thought into it. And so as a young person, how long did it take you to do this? What was your education process? And how long before you decided, yeah, I'm going to sell it? Or from the beginning, were you thinking, I want to sell a product?
That's a good question. It started about 7 years ago when I found a Black & Decker gardening book in my grandma's garage. I was rummaging around in there, and as grandmas do, like our parents, like, unless it was for our birthday, they didn't really like her giving us things. But she would like say, oh, if you could find anything in the garage that you want, you can take it home with you. And she'd like hide stuff in there, you know, the way grandparents get around stuff. And so I was doing my rummaging through her garage, and I found this book, and I started flipping through it, and of course it was a gardening book, and it was talking about, you know, putting things back into the soil, you know, to make it more fertile and stuff like that. And I mean, we tried growing here, but I didn't really have any concept of you have to put stuff back. I mean, I know it's like, now it's like, that is so mundane, but back then it was like, whoa, you actually have to put stuff back in the soil? This is kind of revolutionary, you know? It's like the thing that every gardener knows except someone that is just starting out. And so that really got me excited about, wait, maybe we could actually grow in Oklahoma just for ourselves. So it really started out as a personal thing. And then I met a farming family at a camp that we go to, and I sat down and talked, and they actually have a vegetable farm in Tennessee, and I had all these questions for them, and they introduced me to Eliot Coleman's books. And so when we started reading Coleman's books, I would read them to my dad, and you know, we would talk about like the concepts in there. And of course Coleman's doing it for a living, and so he, you know, I started out with the Winter Harvest Handbook that Coleman writes, and that's more for the home gardener. And then I read the New Organic Grower, which is more of trying to encourage people, hey, this is actually could be a possible livelihood. And so that really opened my eyes to the possibility of it being more than just you know, fun thing to do in your backyard. We could actually make a living doing this. And so that's probably, Coleman's book probably initially is what turned me on to the idea that it would actually be something that you could actually make a living doing. So once we started say, hey, this could actually do, then we started, you know, slowly marketing. And that happened about 6 years ago. Kind of just started selling to neighbors just a little bit here and there. And then I went and took an internship at this family's farm in Tennessee for 6 months, just to kind of see if I really like the cadence of farming, and really introduced a lot of new things to my mind and said, yeah, this is really what I want to do. So we came back here and just kind of expanded more here. And then family saw that I was more serious about it, and they said, okay, maybe we need to start looking for land. And so then we've been looking for land for about 4 years, and we just bought it, 20 acres, like 3 weeks ago. So now is the transition to
the real thing.
The real thing.
So you talk about your dad and you talk about your family. So nuclear family of you, your wife, and children, or your father's involved?
I am not married.
You're not married.
So, yeah.
So your dad is...
I'm 22.
So your family's really involved with this. So it's a family venture of you and your parents?
My parents and my sister. My sister's still at home as well. She's older than me, but she's kind of caught on to this whole idea. I guess, as a family, my parents were involved in medical work and stuff like that down in Texas, and they moved up here to work at more of a residential natural healing facility in the area. And that whole move from kind of like urban, metropolitan lifestyle coming here, lower paying job, that was a big shift for our family, and that was when I was really young. And then we started homeschooling, and that was another big shift because my parents were never homeschooled. So it's been a progressive thing of, kind of moving back to more of a family-centered lifestyle instead of more of an everyone goes their separate ways once you get to a certain age type of thing. And so we've just really seen the benefit in our family as we've slowly made these incremental shifts over years. This hasn't been a big jump thing from like moving to the country and just trying to do this all and, maybe the kids not being in agreement with it. It's really kind of been, family kind of made this decision to move to the country, but we moved in the country, but we weren't really wanting to, we never bought this land thinking we would ever grow on it. So, but it's just kind of organically kind of shifted from that. And so with the introduction, actually seeing that farming could be a possibility, it almost in some ways was a natural progression, I would say, to a certain extent for our family, because we look at friends and stuff and decisions that they've made, going to college, families separating up, just the whole rat race of our modern age, and our family's kind of looked at that and seen where we are, and it's like, if something like this could work, if we could make it economically viable, we would much rather stay together, work together, and try to live a simpler life.
Henceforth the name of your farm.
Better Together Farm.
I like that.
I don't know if this would have been possible 20 years ago, quite honestly. But with the rise in interest in local food, with the coming to of the internet, and that marketability, because now we can actually sell our product at retail prices directly to the customer with somewhat of the same ease as if we were to sell it to a supermarket and then they take 30 or 60% of the profit margin. So, the economics are there's a much more even playing field across the board for small-scale growers than I think there ever was. And then you're growing high-value crops that have short shelf life. So you're not growing like these commodity crops. And then you're selling direct to the consumer, which means you get the best price. So, there's a lot. And on this small acreage, with a situation of only having basically 12 inches of soil and then bedrock where we're growing here, even with these undesirable situations, we're seeing numbers, if we scaled it up, comparable to what Jean Martin's doing. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's extremely possible that this can be economically viable generationally. So I don't know if they needed to, or if they more felt like they wanted to. They felt like they needed to give back to people that have given so much to them. Mm-hmm. Because for Coleman, I think it was what the Nearings did for him. For Jean Martin, probably what Coleman did for him. So I think there's this progression of knowledge, and I'm glad they did it because it helps us all out. Would I want to do that?
You're speaking of rocks. If you notice, this field right here is elevated, probably 18 inches?
14,
15?
yeah, 18 inches, yeah.
18 inches? He hauled in
17 dump truck loads of dirt.
I was thinking there was more than that. 17 10-wheeler loads of topsoil to build up from the bedrock because he was
there was nothing there.
Rocky.
Yeah.
So a lot of this looks pretty smashed here because we did have a hailstorm right before our season ended. Thank you, Oklahoma. But we use the Coleman style beds, 30 inches footpath. We're probably on our new place. We're gonna be going up to 18 inch like Jean Martin. my parents are like, the foot's just too small for us, please, can we go up to a larger? So that's what we're gonna do. And this is, hey you guineas. This is one of our hoop houses. The freeze didn't really bother the peppers in here. And then we have some kale growing still. Guineas are scuffing up the bed. And then we have these square tubing house frame. We built this. This house is 52 by 17 feet wide. I don't think this would be a good option for people up in the north because of snow load. But this house is not really meant for. It's just meant for extending the season on either end. It's not really meant to go through the winter. And this house cost us a little over $600 to build altogether. So for that square footage cover, for that amount, yeah, it's a really good thing for us because our bigger houses that could go through the winter, that are super reinforced, that cover roughly the same area, you know, those houses cost, you know, $5,000–6,000 to build. So something like this can get you in the door and get you the climate control and weather protection that you would need, like in the spring, for, you know, considerably less. And as you can see, you know, we have a just wooden door frame on the end. With the Coleman style beds, you can still comfortably walk down the side of the house without hitting your head, which is a big benefit to this kind of the way we did this. We welded on 2 extra feet onto the square tubing so that we could get it higher so that we wouldn't be hitting our heads on the edges. We wanted to be able to work right up to the edges of the house without hitting our heads. I mean, even Daniel wouldn't hit his head.
Even Daniel.
All jokes.
So how old were you? If you started it 7 years ago, you were 15? 16?
I got interested when I was 14. We're really excited about these houses just because of the price factor, and it's just push-up sides right now, and it's like most people are like, but hey, it stood up to the Oklahoma weather this year, and we had some pretty good storms come through.
A really good storm a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so
it blew a few barns down the road and everything. So that withheld probably 60-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, I mean it did really well. So we're happy. I mean it'll hold up to what we need it to hold up to. So in Oklahoma, because it is hot, we've been using a lot of ridge vents, and we're going to we're probably going to do some different stuff. But this was an attempt to kind of use a chimney effect. So for instance, we can crank up this wall here. If you come around, you can shoot up from this angle, and then you can see how it cracks the whole ridge of the house. I was looking into the lever kind of lifting that Coleman uses on his houses to kind of achieve the same thing, but pricing it out, the lever systems with all the, you know, the mechanization and gears and stuff, your lever system was almost the same cost of the house itself. And so I'm like, I can't do this. But this is just a permanent system connection, and it does the same thing, and it vents really well. Probably one thing that we're going to add in addition to this when we go to our new place and we build new houses is that we're going to install electric fans to keep the circulation, because in Oklahoma in the summertime, that's really where we get a lot of our still days. They can be super hot, but there's just no air movement. And so even in a passive venting system like this, it can get hot in a house just by virtue that there's no air movement. If there's no air movement, there's no transpiration for the plants, and they can't cool themselves either.
So with these houses, do you fund your new greenhouses from what you bring in from your gardening, or is this something that you guys have invested in?
Our first house was purchased, which is around back, was purchased by what I earned off of gardening. These other 2 houses my parents invested in, but we have paid them back from what we've gotten from the farm, mostly now. So as of right now, the farm is really pushing forward its own expansion. So.
And has that been in recent years, or has it done that this whole time?
The last year was the first time the farm actually turned any type of profit, and it's done it again this year. We're seeing around 45 to 50%, like Coleman and all these guys. You know, you're seeing about that much in return, as far as what your net after you pay for your gas and your seeds and all that kind of stuff. Fertility. Our water has high pH. We put the equivalent of a ton of limestone onto our soil annually just through our irrigation system per acre.
You can control his irrigation through an app on his cell phone.
I took out our injectors. That's what we're injecting the acid with. And of course, in this situation, I would lose organic certification if I would use this acid.
Ah.
But the thing is that, I mean, and this is, you know, I think there's a lot of, there's a decent degree of hypocrisy in us all. So I'll just put it that way. But this, in the organic system, this is a little bit irritating because, so let's say I'm using sulfuric acid in my water to buffer the pH. I have calcium coming in, the reaction goes on, and basically what I have is gypsum and Epsom salt is the byproduct of the reaction, CO2 and water. That's the byproduct. All of those elements are organic. You can use them on your farm. But to do this, to use a synthetic, to transform it into an organic, then all of a sudden somehow I lose organic certification because of that. It seems a little bit strange. So, you know, I have to say, okay, what are my customers going to value, and what is best for my family as far as health-wise, and how am I going to achieve optimum yields without compromising? And I feel like intelligently knowing what I'm doing, what the reaction coming out is, and then, you know, what the hazards are, and that I'm using the best products that are going to do the best for my soil. I think we need a lot more growers that make intelligent decisions about what they use, instead of just saying, oh, it's organic, it must be good.
Right.
And so it would be nice to see more of that shift happen. So this is Open Sprinkler. Have you ever heard of it?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so basically what this is that it's an open sourced microcontroller computer, and you can attach it to your phone, so it will link into your phone. So you can have all your solenoid valves, which is just an automatic ball valve. I mean, it's not a ball valve, it's a special valve, but it takes the place of a ball valve. So you can come in here, and if I had it all hooked up, I could show you, but I've disconnected because of the freeze. But I have this, it connects into the internet. This is a TP-Link, so this is connect right into the router at home. So I can turn on water, I can turn off water over my farming area if I'm on the road.